Hey folks, we're continuing our hunt for the best all-around squirrel rabbit load. And this week we will be testing the Remington Express Extra Long Range. These are a 20 gauge load. They are 2 3/4 inch shells. They have an ounce of number 5, so just like all the rest of the loads that we've tested so far have. And they're moving at 1,220 feet per second. The Federals were rated at 1,220 feet per second. The Kents were rated at 1,255. Last week we did the Kents. The Kents far exceeded the Federals, but the Federals did well, especially in the Stevens 512. But let's go ahead and go up to the table, and we're going to be using the same 2 shotguns that we used the last 2 weeks with the same choke, 5.85 choke, shot from 30 yards, free-handed, into a 12-inch circle. So let's go up to the table. We'll look at the shotguns, and we'll come back down here to the range, and we'll see what we get. Alright, so here's our same 2 shotguns that we've already used for the first 2 weeks of this test. We have the Remington SPR 210. It has a choke that is a 5.85 and it's choked in a 5.85. Above it we have the Stevens 512. And it is choked at 5.85 as well. Right now we're concerned with the best squirrel rabbit load. That's what we're hunting for. So if we had to go to the store and only get 1 load, that's what we'd be after. So let's go down to the range and see what we get. I have here my SPR 210. It has a 5.85 choke on it on the left barrel. And we have a bullseye target set up at 30 yards. It has an outside ring that is 12 inches. And that's what we'll be using to test these Remington Extra Long Range number 5. The target here that was shot from the Remington SPR 210, the side-by-side, with the 5.85 choke in it. And we have only 28 pellets out of 170 on this target. That's about 15%. We have squirrel-sized holes in the target here. The coverage is up at the top of the target. The lower target's not really covered. We do have pellets in all the rings from the bulls out to 12 inches, but 15% from 30 yards, that's not a squirrel load. We have our bullseye target set up at 30 yards. It has a 12-inch ring. And I have here our Stevens model 512. It has a 5.85 choke in the upper barrel. So let's shoot this and see what we get. Alright, let's see what we got. Alright folks, here we have the target for the Remington Express Extra Long Range loads. They are a 20 gauge load and a 2 3/4 inch shell with an ounce of number 5 shot movement at 1,220 feet per second. And we shot these in the Stevens over and under, the model 512. We had a 5.85 choke in it. We shot from 30 yards, and we have only 25 of 170 pellets in this target. That's around 15%. So this is not a very good load for squirrel hunting. We have a squirrel size gap here. We have one down here. We have one right here in the middle. Of course, for an aim was the bullseye, so we didn't even hit where we were aiming. And we have a concentration of pellets here and up here. So this is not a load. It did not perform well in the Remington side-by-side. It didn't perform well in the Stevens over and under. This is not a load that I would go purchase to squirrel hunt with. If I had them, I would use them, but I'd make sure I kept my shots at closer range than 30 yards. The Remington Express extra long range were disappointing, to say the least. At 30 yards, they did not perform well at all. But on the bright side, rabbits aren't nearly as hardy as squirrels. They are far easier to dispatch than a squirrel is. So we'll see how the Remingtons do in a few weeks. So until next time, y'all stay safe in the squirrel woods. And God bless. Got the camera, girl. All right, let's see what we got, folks.